The big banks never saw this coming.
Many conservatives complained that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America.
Over the past few years, the issue of debanking has only grown more serious. So much so that even some of Trump's most vocal critics are now siding with him on the issue.
Donald Trump was on to a real problem when he criticized Bank of America for its debanking practices.
And today we're covering it all. So if you believe truth isn't partisan, hit that subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JPMorgan Chase, is revealing that he is under investigation, or his bank is, over the alleged debanking scandal. President Trump claims that the nation's largest bank was rejecting conservative customers. Here's actually President Trump talking about that. Watch.
I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complained that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
For context, President Trump made those remarks just 3 days into his term. But more recently, he followed up with an executive order titled Guaranteeing Fair Banking for All Americans, which specifically outlined removing reputational risk and politicized debanking. So why is this important? Well, many individuals who were shut out of the financial system were given that exact explanation. Now, JPMorgan has disclosed in a regulatory filing that it's under federal investigation over these practices. What makes this even more telling is that back in March of this year, they quietly updated their internal procedures to ensure these discriminatory practices don't take place. That's about as close to an admission as you can get. Meanwhile, Bank of America's CEO was noticeably absent from a White House dinner attended by other major Wall Street execs, suggesting that something might be brewing there too. Lara Trump went on to explain what types of hurdles they faced when completely disconnected from their financial system, saying this.
Explain to our viewers what they did to your family in the debanking space.
Well, yeah, Rachel, listen, I'm grateful that there's hopefully going to be transparency in this space, because, you know, Eric and I, our entire family, could have told you that in the wake of the 2020 election, conservatives, including our family, were targeted and canceled because of political views. Quite frankly, no person in the United States of America, whether you're Republican or Democrat, should ever be targeted in this way based on political views. But that's exactly what happened. Multiple banks, most of them overnight almost, pulled the rug out from under the Trump organization. You know, when you have a payroll of thousands of employees, Rachel, that you have to every 2 weeks pay, and then you take their bank away and you say, we're not going to bank with you anymore. Whenever, you know, you have a mortgage that you're going to use to buy a house in Florida, for example, and all of a sudden, despite qualifying for that mortgage, they say, you know what, never mind. That's a big problem. The good news right now is that there is an investigation into this, and I hope that no American ever has to go through this again.
According to Trump, after he left office in 2021, both JPMorgan and Bank of America rejected more than $1 million of his deposits for political reasons. Melania added that Barron was denied an account and her own longtime bank terminated hers without warning. For instance, Michael Knowles got debanked by Stripe, and after several months of trying to solve this issue through their support, he posted about it on X. After a lengthy back and forth with them, the company eventually admitted, "We can confirm that the restrictions placed on your account were not taken unilaterally by Stripe, but were the result of a legally binding order that was issued to us." Mind you, Michael had zero idea such an order even existed, and it's gotten so out of hand that even Elizabeth Warren came to Trump's defense in a recent Senate hearing. But before we play her take, a quick reminder, we just launched our merch store. It's amazing, you're gonna love it. And every purchase helps us continue bringing you the stories that the media tries to bury. So make sure you check it out. Now back to the video.
Thank you for holding today's hearing on debanking. It's a real problem, and it's something that I hope we can work on together. People need access to a banking account in order to thrive in today's economy. And the same goes for businesses. Without a banking account, you just really can't get along. For me, This is straightforward. It doesn't matter who you voted for, what you believe in, or the origin of your last name. People shouldn't be arbitrarily denied access to their banks, locked out of their accounts, or stripped of their banking privileges. Donald Trump was on to a real problem when he criticized Bank of America for its debanking practices. Banks may be taking shortcuts when it comes to assessing risks. Rather than investing the time and the resources to identify true criminal risks and shutting down those accounts, big banks are relying on black box algorithms and middlemen companies and shutting down accounts without doing careful due diligence.
You know it's a serious issue when Elizabeth Warren, of all people, is defending Trump. And if you look beyond the U.S., this tactic is not new. In countries we consider allies, governments have used the banking system to go after political opponents for years. For instance, Trudeau's government froze the bank accounts of the people who participated in the Freedom Convoy. Over in Germany, members of the AfD party have had both personal and party accounts shut down after being labeled extremists by the state. And that's just scratching the surface, as Europe has several cases just like this. That's why bipartisanship on this issue matters. But there's another angle that doesn't get much attention, and I'll let Jim Jordan do the explanation.
Well, we know it's happened, Sean, because we've seen it before. I mean, banks they collect all kinds of information on their customers, and then they give the government access to that information. And we reported this in a report last Congress. After January 6, 2021, the FBI sends an email to Bank of America, says, we want all the credit card information, debit card purchases, credit card purchases of anyone who was in the Washington, D.C. area on January 5th, 6th, or 7th. And they asked for that information without a warrant, which is not how it's supposed to be. So we know what the government does, and then they collect all this information from the banks, and we found in our investigation that 14,000 government employees back in the Biden administration searched that database 3 million times. Information the banks has, the government's going in there and finding out things about Americans that they're not supposed to, again, without a warrant. And that is not how it's supposed to work in our country. And then all this leads to what you're talking about. Sometimes then they'll go, well, we're just going to debank these people after what the government's told us to do, what the government's asked for. We're just going to debank them. That's the process.
You know what bothers me most about this? It's not like the government struggles to get our data. We're practically living in the age of surveillance. But they're not even trying to hide it anymore. There's no attempt at being subtle. There's no effort to act like there are boundaries. And sure, we might get a few regulations passed to add some guardrails around things like debanking, but then what? What's stopping the next administration or the one after that from bending the rules or finding a loophole? That's the real problem we should address. But let me know in the comments your thoughts on the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.